Hey, get Chodesh, get Erev Shabbos, Parashas Shoftim. I'd like to start off this week with giving the main events, the main highlights of this week's parasha, and then continuing onto a beautiful commentary we find from the holy Sefer Noam Elimelech. This week's Parashas Shoftim's main highlights. Moshe instructs the Israelites to appoint judges and officials in their tribes to judge the people justly. There's instructions against bribery, impartial judgment, and pursuing justice. There's instructions not to set up pagan idols or stone pillars. Laws about bringing unblemished sacrifices. We have instructions for dealing with idolatry and false prophets. The rights and privileges of the Levitical priests are outlined. Warnings. There's warnings against occult practices like divination. I hope I said that right. And consulting the dead. Hashem will send a prophet like Moshe, who the people must listen to. There's instructions to set aside cities of refuge for accidental killers to flee to. There's warnings not to move boundary markers or convict people based on a single witness. There's laws about witnesses and penalties for false testimony. Laws and ritual for unsolved murders, and instructions for going to war, offering peace, and treatment of conquered cities. So that's the main highlights in a nutshell. Now going on to the commentary of the Holy Noam Elimelech on the first pasuk of this week's parasha. So he says, it can be said regarding judges, Shoftim, etc., that there are two types of righteous people. There is a righteous person who is able to accomplish everything through his holy speech and does not need to cry out and pray as much, because his speech makes an impression and he can delay judgments so they do not come at all. And there is a righteous person who is not on this level and needs to pray and cry out to Hashem until Hashem hears his prayer. And this is, quote, the eyes of Hashem are towards the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. From Tehillim, I believe. From Psalms, for eyes are higher than ears, as is known. Your eyes are always above your ears. And the righteous person who has reached the higher level such that Hashem supervises him with an attentive eye, he can accomplish everything through his supervision, that Hashem pays attention to his speech and movements. And this is, quote, but I am prayer. Tehillim. Again. David HaMelech always does it for us. And the righteous person who is below this level needs crying out and prayer. And this is the eyes of Hashem, hinting to the two levels mentioned. And this is pasuk from this week's parasha. Judges, you shall provide yourself for your tribes. Meaning, provide judges who can delay judgments so they do not come at all, in all your cities, for the world belongs to the righteous. As it says, Hashem consulted with the souls of the righteous in the act of creation, and this is for your tribes. Quoting for your tribes of this week's parasha, of the first pasuk, hinting they can delay the staff of judgment. And this is, quote, Hashem desires for the sake of his righteousness. Meaning everything has, that's from Yeshaya, meaning everything from Isaiah, meaning everything Hashem desires to do, whether mercy or judgment, God forbid, it is all for the sake of his righteousness. Meaning he wants to do righteousness, which is by delaying judgments through the righteous. And this is righteousness for the world and the righteous person, since he needs to rise to a great level. And this is, quote, he will magnify the Torah. Also from Yeshaya, from Messiah. and this is quote your staff and your support from Tehillim Psalms, meaning quote your staff is the judgments, quote, and your support, and quote, are the righteous who delay them, and they are a support for us that they should not come, quote, they comfort me, unquote, and this is sufficient. And this is judges and officers you shall provide yourself, hinting to the two types of judges mentioned, meaning the good inclination and the evil inclination. And the verse refers to the good inclination as officers, because it is like an officer who rules over the people so they do not do evil. Similarly, the good inclination rebukes and chastises a person with the rod of its mouth and shows him what he is lacking in his service. Quote, in all your cities, end quote, for every mitzvah and holiness has its own gate. And everything a person does in this world, Torah, prayer, or any holiness, he opens the gate of that mitzvah, and this is, quote, in all your cities. Quote from this week's parasha, do not pervert justice. I think it's from the next pasuk, the second pasuk of the parasha, and carrying on, quote, and do not show favoritism, end quote. The explanation is that it is written, you shall have no other gods before me. And it can be explained that the Creator, blessed be He, and it's also, quote, you shall have no other gods before me, from Exodus. And it can be explained that the Creator, blessed be He, is called the, quote, face of everything. For everything has a divine spark that forms and sustains it. And if, God forbid, a person thinks any foreign thought or looks with any evil sight, he banishes and distances the face from himself. And foreign thoughts, evil sights, and imaginings are called other gods. And this is, you shall have no other gods. And this is, quote, do not show favoritism, meaning do not sin or think outside thoughts so as not to distance the face and become estranged from it. The pasuk, in the same pasuk, it says, and you shall not take bribes, for bribes blind the eyes of the wise. And seemingly, do we not see many bribe takers who are healthy and strong and die with full eyesight? But the matter is, the truly righteous person who serves God merits attaining great levels with the eyes of his intellect, which is supernal wisdom. And this is, quote, the eyes of Hashem are toward the righteous, end quote, from Sefer Tehillim, from Psalms. The Hashem grants the righteous the eyes of supernal intellect, and this is, you shall not take bribes, for bribes blind the eyes of the wise, meaning he will not merit the eyes of his intellect, attaining supernal wisdom, and pervert the words of the righteous, meaning the words of the righteous, when they speak in their holiness, he perverts them, meaning not only will he not attain supernal wisdom, but also if the righteous wants to rebuke him with their words to return him to goodness, the words of the tzaddikim will not help, because all their words will seem perverted to him. The next pasuk quotes, justice shall you pursue, means that you should make your actions means that you should make your actions just, for through the lower justice you pursue the higher justice, to elevate it to its source and sweeten it. This is also the meaning of, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. Now, it brings up an idea for me, which I've heard from Rav Chimai Shlita, that it's for sure Ika Inyan in Avodas Hashem. One of the main matters in Avodas Hashem, we have a mitzvah to guard to guard our eyes and our heart, not follow after our eyes and our heart. And what this means, not going after our eyes and our heart, is not going after what we see, what what's in front of us, and and not going on influence of negative emotions within our heart, such as getting sad or angry. Those are negative emotions, and we shouldn't go after them. And what else is in terms of the eyes, in terms of what we see? It simply means that we don't go searching for inappropriate sights, inappropriate images, things that we shouldn't be seeing. We shouldn't, as men, we shouldn't be looking at women in the streets or on our cell phone or in any sort of way, no matter whether they're completely sneers or not sneers. Anything inappropriate or that can crooked the mind and the heart, we should abstain from ever putting those sorts of images in front of us. And on top of that, if we ever are in a situation in which there is something inappropriate in front of us, and inappropriate being can also be a completely sneers woman for a man. A man's meant to divert his eyes. We're meant to, as Ramchal teaches us in the beginning of Mesilas Yesharim, that a person is meant to run away from a virus like a deer runs away from a predator. And so, in a moment that we're faced with an image in front of us that can cause us to either sin or have thoughts of sin, which is also bad in itself, and can sometimes, if I'm not mistaken, is if not always, is worse than the actual sin itself. That's another thing to speak about at a different time. But this Inyan is not only that we shouldn't put negative, inappropriate images in front of our eyes or in our minds, the eye of our mind as well. We shouldn't have inappropriate thoughts, and that when we do, chas v'shalom, God forbid, when we do see inappropriate things, when we do see women which are not our wives, chas v'shalom, whether maybe in the street, in the store, on our phone, on our computer, in the airport, whatever situation a person may be, a Jewish man needs to divert his eyes immediately. We need to run away from whatever it is and hide ourselves, hide our neshamas and protect ourselves. And in this way, by guarding our eyes and our heart, we can come to achieve true holiness and to purify the mind, to purify our thoughts. And eventually a person reaches a place that even if he comes from a place of having inappropriate thoughts, bad thoughts, Yetzer Hara getting into his mind, so then by following these eitzes and avoiding Hashem of completely turning away, of diverting oneself, literally going like that. If we're looking at, if there's an image in front of us in which is inappropriate in any form, or causes one to have chas v'shalom a negative thought, so by doing this and by going this way, one will eventually come to a place of having completely pure thoughts and no machshavas ra, no bad thoughts will enter his head. And if chas v'shalom a person has one time every now and then a bad thought that enters his mind, he should immediately shut his mind away from it, think of Torah, think of good things, mamish, push it away in his mind. This is an effort that we need to take within ourselves, within our intellect, within our everyday actions, because if a person does not guard himself from this, if a person does not guard himself from any negative, inappropriate images of any kind, a person will fall to the sitra achar, to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil inclination, and a person can come to sin, and then one sin as we've learned before, one sin leads to another sin, and it builds up like that. Same way with mitzvahs. When a person does one mitzvah, he does another mitzvah, and so he collects a lot of mitzvahs and builds up mitzvahs. So Mitzvah Hashem, we should be zoich in such a door, in such a generation that we live, that these inyanim are these matters of the hardest avoid, the hardest service, the hardest work that a man needs to do in his everyday life. So it will be our greatest strength. It is our greatest strength, and Mitzvah Hashem, we should all be zoiche to guard our eyes and not give in to any negative emotions we may feel in our heart. And this way we can come to elevate the two parts of our heart. And as the pasuk says, justice shall you pursue. We should only pursue to be holy, to be kadosh, to be tahor, to be pure, and there should be no other inspiration within ourselves that takes us away from this avoided, from this work. If a Jew falls chas v'shalom in this work, so a Jew needs to pick himself up right away, without even blinking an eye. A Jew needs to get back to exactly where he was before, in his greatest state. One way I personally think about avodas Hashem in this matter that the tzaddikim tell us about. Sorry, I lost my thought. I'm trying to rethink it again. Pursuing holiness and being pure, and as soon as we fall and then we getting back up is an Indian matter which is personal to me, which I try myself very hard, at least for me I try very hard at doing, is as chas v'shalom one is in a moment, experiences a moment of seeing something inappropriate, to feel within yourself the greatest, to remind oneself of that greatest spiritual feeling they ever felt before, whether it be standing the beginning of Rosh Hashanah by Mariv, or the end of Rosh Hashanah, or the end of Yom Kippur, or during the Ila, whenever it is for a person that they've ever felt their spirit, that they ever felt the holiest they've felt, the most spiritual they felt, one needs to awaken that feeling within themselves. I personally try to awaken that feeling within myself, and that makes me instantly want to turn away from everything that can possibly cause me to deter from Hashem and chas v'shalom fall into there. Yet Hashem, we should all be zoiche to work on this every day, day in and day out, moment in and moment out, and we should always keep ourselves strong. And in this generation, this is as much as we can do right now. This is the Ikar Void, this is the main work in which we have to do. A beautiful Shabbos to everyone. We should all be zoiche to see the arrival of our righteous Redeemer, head of Yamayni Umayni.